He also had underlined the pragmatics of translation, but he had also hinted at the cultural imperatives of the context to bring the essence or the essential meaning. But they all stopped short of saying the simple thing that each language has a different way of expressing itself. That is something which we should honor. Now, on the basis of what the audience has heard, I would invite questions that they would receive an answer, and we have some 10 to 15 minutes for that. If we have relevant questions on whatever they have said, we can receive questions for 10 to 15 minutes at the maximum.
Studies. People like Sheikh Simon and Susan Sokolowski and Harbo, they actually took on this to critique this particular very patriarchal notion of translation.
Late to listen to Sarantan, but I could listen to Lakshmi Chandrasekhar, I believe. But one thing what I felt that the theme, very much theme is to, the challenges to maintain the essence of the original. As Mrs. Lakshmi Chandrasekhar, she cited examples of two poems, this and this, but I could not understand exactly what are the challenges, how she defined the challenges to maintain the essence of the original of those two poems. Yes, ma'am.
The whole purpose was to show the kind of challenges any translator faces, because I gave a Kannada original and I gave 6 translations, and I tried to show how each one thinks of the essence as being different, and each one sees a different kind of a challenge there. So how do they cope with this challenge? There is this berry, the sour berry. Now one translator feels it is the gooseberry. The other one thinks, no, gooseberry does not represent the true one, it has to be myrobalan. And somebody else thinks, why bother about any of this? Now gooseberry has a very specific cultural context, so let me just call it a berry. Now berry again brings in other problems. So I was trying to point out how the choices a translator has to make have to be made very carefully, keeping in mind the cultural context of any word that you're using or any word that you're translating, and your own interpretation of the word original. What you think of as the original might not be really the original at all. And then what do you translate and what do you leave untranslated? Because the word ayya, for example, which has multiple meanings, if you pin it down to one meaning, then you are taking away the other meaning.
Problematize. But when we say the original, we think that it is text. In that case, there shouldn't be any problem at all. And finding the right word culturally and linguistically may not be actually addressing what is considered the essence of a particular thing. So that can also be problematized. Anyway, Now, thank you so much for your patience and listening to whatever our erudite presenters have presented. Now, we have traversed the whole region from Maldar Lok to Twin Brothers to Koels and Cuckoos. These are simple items and can be addressed contextually. It is that imperative of the context that Vladimir Nabokov, in his translation of Pushkin's Eugene Onegin, had underlined. So, till now, what I have seen in today's deliberations and what I have experienced as a translator and one dabbling in translation theory is that there are two questions, even binaries. It's a translator and a translatee. It is the faithful translator and the naturalizing one. So, in order to negotiate this contested area and to navigate what is not the charted out or properly mapped route, I will say that it is the target language or the receiving language which must determine the translation. All I want that the receiving language must not always be at the receiving end of things. Each language has its own way, own unique way of expressing realities. Realities themselves are not fixed. Realities can change. And different realities abide in different places. So even though we now stay in the much vaunted globalized world, we are not even post-national. And I have seen things and other things mired in banal nationalisms. So it is the ethics of translation that I want to underline. You may think ethics is alien to the act of translation. That's why right from the beginning I have been saying one thing, that I am not concerned with the pragmatics of translation, which have their own Hangkhim problems and will differ from place to place, from language to language, from culture to culture, from region to region. But what about the concepts? So the multiplicity that India is, like Sahitya has also said, that in our polycultural society, polycultural reality, translation is an imperative. But instead of wanting an empty pluralism, let us subscribe to what I would call relativism. That things are subject to change and they would differ and they are related according to the given context. So the ethics of translation is the owning of the fact that other people with other cultures do actually exist in the world. That is the ethics of translation. So it is with respect and reverence to them that the target language will translate or render anything else into any other language. So the question of the translator and translatee can be best solved if it's a corporate endeavor. The writer, the translator, and why not a select audience? But they must be armed with this belief that it's a different culture, like in Manipur, for instance, of the two twins, the one who is born later is the elder, considered the elder culturally. So that is a cultural determinant. It is with respect to that we must translate, but we are translating into a language. So we must respect the language as different from our own. So our tongue is different from their tongues. So it is to their tongue that we must have adherence to. So these are questions that matter. All these things can again be put under the rubric of the Robert Lowell and Vladimir Nabokov controversy. Robert Lowell had translated what he called his translation, imitations. That's the name of his book of translations from classics. German, Greek, Spanish, Russian, and so on. And he said that he is free, he is translating. It's a freedom that he enjoys. What does his freedom constitute? What is it made up of? It is made up of an acceptance of the fact that these are not knowledge texts that he is rendering into another language. These are respected, revered pieces of literature, and he is also indulging in another literary creation. It's a literary act. It's not a question of translating a theorem in geometry or something in physics. Literary translation is an entirely different matter, and you must be literary. So that wouldn't mean it. There have been simple problems like, say, cuckoo or quail. So basic ornithology is that for anything to be a cuckoo, it must have a twofold sound. So what we have keteki in Assamia, that is called the Indian cuckoo, because it has a twofold sound. The English of the European cuckoo also has a twofold. Quail is not a cuckoo, it's a quail. It is used because it is called the harbinger of spring. Then in translating, say, Maldar low. We have Maldar now, it's summer. So Malda is also a place. So why not that translation? So it is the context which will determine. But these are simple problems of pragmatics. And in the pragmatics of translation, theory is absolutely redundant. We don't need any theory. There are many theory mongers, but we don't need theory to translate. You must be able to communicate even the non-verbal nuances present. That is why I was happy, because I had read only Lakshmi Chandrasekhar's fantastic prose translation of a novel. I didn't know she was so much into poetry translation also. But when we translate a poem, it is not the quail or the cuckoo or this or that. It is the empty space between the lines. When we transfer a poem into another language, we also have to transfer the empty space between the lines. That is the cultural constituent. Once we are equipped to do that, the rest would follow, and they can be solved by any obstinate school teacher like Vladimir Nabokov. So this much I have to say, I would like it to graduate to the conceptual level, so people who are interested, maybe something that has been hinted at by Sahitya about the plurality. In fact, while delivering her lecture on translation, Suzanne Sontag had called her lecture "The World as India." It is collected in the posthumous collection. "The World as India" is a lecture on translation, given, I think, in Israel or somewhere. So in India, that reality we are face to face with. So it is the relativity. There is no finality. The original as a given text may not be problematized, because that is the starting point. It comes before, that is the only thing that distinguishes it from what will be the translated thing which comes later. No other priorities are in question. Then essence, what is the essence? Essence is both meaning and whatever is felt, and the emotions, the hinterland of experience behind each particular word. All those things you would find ample proof of in what I call the empty space between the two lines of the poem. I do not have much to say. This is all. Thank you so much. And have a nice day.
I think he summed it up so beautifully. It was a paper in itself on challenges before a translator. Thank you, Acharjya ji, for chairing this session. I'm sorry, two of them didn't turn up. One had to leave, the other has not come. So thank you, Sayantans, and Lakshmi Chandrasekhar and Mobi Singh ji for such a beautiful presentation and talking about the challenges before translation and how close we can come to the original. Thanks a lot. We have time. We'll take a 15-minute break and then start off the next session early, if the chair permits. Arupa ji, can we start the session a bit early? So let's have tea for 15 minutes, relax, and please come back, because we have a short story session now. After this, so you'll be hearing stories from Hindi, Konkani, Maithili, Nepali, Rajasthani and Sindhi, with Arupa ji chairing that session. So please have a cup of tea and come back. And thank you so much all the panelists on the floor. Thank you.